Adrian Carter, a man of wealth and power, stood on the balcony of his luxurious suite, his eyes fixed on the horizon where the sun was slowly sinking into the sea. The vibrant hues of orange and gold reflected on the gentle waves, creating a scene of serene beauty. At 36, Adrian was the heir to a sprawling business empire, having achieved everything money could buy. Yet, despite it all, his heart felt hollow. After a string of personal and professional setbacks, Adrian had come to this seaside town seeking the peace he felt he had long lost. To the outside world, Adrian seemed the picture of perfection. Tall, strikingly handsome, and impeccably dressed. His dark hair was neatly trimmed, with a few strands of gray at his temples adding to his air of sophistication. But beneath the polished exterior was a man wrestling with his own sense of purpose. He had no idea that this trip would change his life forever. In this quaint little town, Adrian would meet a woman with a warm heart and fierce determination. Mia Harper, a young woman with big dreams, undeterred by the challenges life had thrown her way. And it would all begin with a promise that seemed so insignificant at the time. Adrian Carter came to this seaside town not to find something specific, but to escape. Just days before his wedding, his fiancée had walked away after discovering he had insisted on a strict prenuptial agreement. As if that weren't enough, a major business merger he had worked tirelessly to secure had fallen apart at the last minute. His life, which had seemed so perfect, had turned into a string of pressure-filled days and mounting disappointments. Adrian chose a luxurious hotel perched on a hill overlooking the coast. He believed that this quaint little town, with its cobblestone streets and tranquil atmosphere, might help him regain his footing. Yet after a few days, he realized the opulence of his suite only magnified the emptiness he felt inside. One afternoon, unable to bear the isolation any longer, Adrian decided to take a walk through the town. The narrow, gravel-lined streets, colorful houses, and charming roadside shops gave him a sense of warmth so different from the cold skyscrapers he was used to. His steps eventually brought him to a small cafe called the Harbor Light Cafe. The weathered wooden sign and the inviting aroma of freshly brewed coffee drew him in. Without hesitation, he stepped inside. The interior was cozy and welcoming, with rustic wooden tables and soft ambient lighting. Behind the counter, Mia Harper was smiling warmly as she served an elderly customer a cup of coffee. Her auburn hair was tied back in a loose ponytail, and her hazel eyes sparkled with kindness. Her face, dotted with freckles, gave her an approachable, effortless beauty. Mia noticed Adrian the moment he entered. "Good afternoon, welcome to the Harbor Light Cafe. What can I get for you?" Her voice was warm and friendly, immediately putting Adrian at ease. "I'll have an espresso, and maybe, could you recommend something special?" Adrian asked, trying to mask his awkwardness. Mia's smile grew wider as she responded, "Apple pie just came out of the oven. It's the house specialty." "Sounds perfect," Adrian replied, finding himself smiling as he watched her prepare his order. In the days that followed, Adrian found himself returning to the Harbor Light Cafe more often than he'd planned. Initially, he convinced himself it was because of the excellent coffee and relaxing atmosphere, but deep down, he knew the real reason: Mia. Each time he visited, their conversations grew longer. What started as polite exchanges evolved into deeper discussions. Mia shared funny anecdotes about the cafe's eccentric customers, stories from her small-town life, and most importantly, her biggest dream: to open a literary-themed cafe where people could unplug from technology and reconnect with inspiring books. Adrian, a man who had spent his life in sleek boardrooms and glamorous events, was surprised by how much peace he found in Mia's presence. She had a way of making him forget his troubles and feel grounded in a way he hadn't experienced in years. One evening after her shift, Mia agreed to take a walk along the beach with Adrian. The moonlight shimmered on the water, creating a magical backdrop. The sound of the waves blended with Mia's laughter as she recounted her failed attempts at baking. In that serene moment, Adrian felt safe enough to express thoughts he had kept locked away. "Sometimes I wonder if all of this was worth it," he admitted, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "I've spent my entire life building a career, making money, but in the end, no one really cares about who I am, only what I can offer." Mia stopped walking and turned to him, her hazel eyes filled with understanding. "I get that. It's hard to find genuine connections these days, but I believe they're out there. Sometimes they come from the most unexpected places." Her response felt like a balm to Adrian's soul. In a sudden burst of emotion, he laughed and said, "If we're still single a year from now, I'll marry you." Mia looked at him, surprised, before breaking into a soft laugh. "A year is a long time, Adrian. Who knows what could happen?" "True," he replied with a smile, "but maybe it's enough time to figure out if this," he gestured between them, "is real." Though it was spoken lightly, both of them felt a shift in the air. Under the glow of the moon and the rhythmic sound of the waves, a seed of hope was planted, a possibility neither dared to examine too closely just yet. Back in his usual life, Adrian was quickly swept up in the relentless pace of his demanding routine. Long meetings, endless business trips, and family pressures left him with little time to reflect. His mother, a polished but ambitious woman, constantly pushed him to settle down. She arranged dinners and events, always ensuring Adrian was introduced to women she deemed perfect. One of them was Claire Morgan, a talented and ambitious fashion designer. Claire was intelligent, beautiful, and ticked every box on his family's list of what an ideal partner should be. During a candlelit dinner at an exclusive restaurant, Claire charmed him with her wit and elegance. But as Adrian glanced at the menu with its pretentious dish names, he suddenly thought of Mia's bright smile as she spoke passionately about her freshly baked apple pie. That memory brought an involuntary smile to his face, and at that moment, he knew his heart had already chosen long ago. Meanwhile, Mia was facing her own challenges. While her work at the cafe was rewarding, it was also exhausting. Her parents, concerned about the uncertainty of her career as a waitress, urged her to abandon her dream and pursue something more stable. However, her conversations with Adrian had lit a fire within her. She began researching business plans, studying management, and even scouting potential locations for her literary-themed cafe. During this time, Mia met Ryan, a high school literature teacher in town. Ryan was kind, shared her love of books, and fully supported her dreams. For a while, Mia allowed herself to imagine a future with him, safe, stable, and comfortable. But every time Ryan invited her out for dinner or a walk, she felt an inexplicable hesitation. One starry night, as Mia walked along the same beach where she and Adrian had once talked under the moonlight, she admitted to herself that her heart still belonged to the mysterious man who had entered her life like a whirlwind. The short messages they had exchanged, the memories of their time at the cafe, and the half-furious promise echoed in her mind. Adrian felt the same. Between grueling meetings and glittering parties, he often found himself yearning for the simplicity and warmth that Mia had brought into his life. The connection he had with her hadn't faded. If anything, it had only grown stronger. A year had passed since that night on the beach. Adrian stared at the calendar in his office and realized that today was the date he had promised Mia. A rush of nervousness, doubt, and hope flooded through him. Without a second thought, he canceled all his appointments and booked a flight back to the small seaside town where it had all begun. The flight felt endless. Adrian sat in his seat, his mind racing with questions. What if she's moved on? What if those memories were just fleeting moments for her? And what about me? Am I expecting too much? But deep down, he knew he had to keep his promise. When he arrived, Adrian went straight to the Harbor Light Cafe, the place where every memory of Mia seemed to come alive. His heart pounded as he spotted Mia standing outside, but then he stopped in his tracks. Mia was talking to another man, a tall, handsome man who rested his hand on her shoulder with an ease that suggested closeness. A wave of disappointment crashed over Adrian. How foolish he had been to think she would wait for him an entire year. Resigned, Adrian decided to walk away, not wanting to interfere with her happiness. But before he could take another step, a familiar voice called out, "Adrian, oh my God, it's really you." Maya ran toward him with a radiant smile, throwing her arms around him before he could react. The familiar scent of coffee and her soft perfume overwhelmed him, bringing back every memory he had tried to suppress. "I can't believe you actually came," Mia said, stepping back to look at him, her hands still on his arms. Adrian, trying to hide his nervousness, glanced at the man who was now walking toward them. "Mia, aren't you going to introduce me to your friend?" the man asked, with a friendly smile, his tone lighthearted. Mia laughed, seemingly realizing the misunderstanding in Adrian's expression. "Oh, of course! Adrian, this is Mark, my brother. Mark, this is Adrian, the friend I told you about." The word brother echoed in Adrian's mind like a saving grace. Relief washed over him so intensely that he almost laughed out loud. Mark extended his hand with a warm smile. "So you're the famous Adrian. Mia talks about you all the time. It's great to finally meet you." They exchanged pleasantries before Mark excused himself. "I need to pick up my daughter from school. You two have a lot to catch up on." As Mark walked away, the air between Adrian and Mia felt charged with unspoken emotions. "So," Mia began with a playful smile, "are you still single?" Adrian chuckled, the tension easing. "And you?" "Still the same," Mia replied, her eyes sparkling. They stood there, looking at each other for what felt like an eternity, emotions flowing freely between them. Adrian took her hands in his heart overflowing. "Mia," he began, his voice trembling slightly, "a year ago I said it as a joke, but the truth is, from the moment I met you, my life changed. I've spent this entire year thinking about you. I don't want to spend another day without you by my side." Tears glistened in Mia's eyes as she smiled brightly. "I feel the same, Adrian. I tried to move on, convincing myself it was just a fleeting moment, but nothing compared to what I felt with you." Adrian pulled her closer, their faces inches apart. "I came here to keep my promise," he whispered, "and I'm not leaving without you." As the sun set over the horizon, with the sound of waves as their soundtrack, Adrian and Mia realized that the promise made a year ago had never been a mere joke. It had been the beginning of something true and deep, a love that had grown stronger with time and distance. The golden hues of the sunset painted the sky and the sea, as if welcoming a new chapter in Adrian and Mia's lives. They stood together on the beach where it had all begun, feeling the magic of the moment. "I think this was meant to be," Adrian said softly, his gaze never leaving Mia. Mia smiled, stepping closer and placing a hand on his chest. "Maybe it always was," she replied, her voice warm and tender. The months that followed marked a turning point for Adrian. The bustling city life that once defined him now felt distant and unfulfilling. After much reflection and countless moments spent thinking of Mia, he decided to leave behind his glamorous lifestyle. Returning to the seaside town felt like coming home, a place where he could rediscover himself and build something meaningful alongside destiny. He got involved in community projects, using his business expertise to help small businesses thrive, inspired by his earlier conversations with Mia about making a difference in the world. As for Mia, she finally brought her dream to life. With Adrian's support, she opened a literary cafe called Stories by the Shore. The cafe became a haven where people could not only enjoy great coffee but also find peace in books and meaningful conversations. One morning at the cafe, Mia watched Adrian sitting by the window, sunlight streaming onto his face as he immersed himself in a book. She smiled softly, realizing that every struggle, every moment of waiting, had been worth it. They both knew that their love wasn't a fairy tale, but rather a journey, one filled with challenges yet brimming with purpose. The promise they had once made, which had seemed like a simple joke, had become a heartfelt vow, a promise kept with all their hearts. As the last rays of the day faded into the horizon, Adrian took Mia's hand, smiled, and said, "We made it." Mia looked at him, her eyes full of hope and love. And this is only the beginning. Adrian knew he didn't want to just walk beside Mia in life. He wanted her to be an inseparable part of his world, forever. The thought of proposing to Mia had been on his mind since the day they started building a new life together. But he wanted the moment to be perfect, a memory they would cherish for a lifetime. One warm afternoon, under the soft glow of the setting sun, Adrian brought Mia to the same beach where they had made their fateful promise. The breeze played with her hair, and her radiant smile made Adrian's heart swell with love. Taking her hand gently, Adrian looked deep into her eyes. "Mia, you've changed my entire world. You've taught me to appreciate the little things and helped me rediscover what truly matters in life. I can't imagine a single day without you." Adrian took a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest. Slowly, he knelt down on one knee and pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was a ring with a delicate stone shaped like a drop of ocean water, shimmering in the golden light. His voice trembled slightly as he said, "Mia Harper, will you marry me?" Mia's hands flew to her mouth, her eyes brimming with tears. "Adrian, yes, I will." She laughed and cried at the same time, her heart overflowing with joy. Adrian stood and wrapped her in his arms as the waves seemed to cheer them on. A few months later, Adrian and Mia's wedding took place on that very same beach. The sky was a bright, endless blue, and the sun bathed everything in golden light. Rows of chairs were adorned with wildflowers, simple yet elegant, perfectly reflecting the warmth of the occasion. Mia walked down the aisle, arm in arm with her father, wearing a flowing white dress with delicate details resembling the waves. Adrian stood waiting at the end of the aisle, dressed in a simple yet elegant suit, his eyes never leaving hers. As they exchanged bows, Mia whispered, "You kept your promise for a year, and I know you'll keep it every day after." Adrian smiled, holding her hands tightly. "Every day with you is a promise I'll gladly keep." After the wedding, Adrian and Mia embarked on a new chapter of their lives filled with love and joy. Together, they ran the cafe Stories by the Shore, turning it into more than just a place for coffee. It became a hub where people found connection, inspiration, and warmth. Adrian found fulfillment in supporting community projects, while Mia continued to inspire others with her passion and drive. They often spent quiet afternoons on the beach, talking about their dreams for the future and cherishing what they had built together. One evening, as the sunset painted the sky in hues of pink and purple, Adrian turned to Mia, his eyes filled with emotion. "I used to believe my life was all about work and success," he said softly, his voice tinged with wonder. "But then you came along and suddenly everything made sense. You are, without a doubt, the best thing that's ever happened to me." Mia smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. "And you are the reason I believe every dream can come true." Under the stars, with the waves whispering blessings around them, Adrian and Mia knew that true happiness wasn't found in grandeur, but in the little moments of love and gratitude they shared every day.